Hey everyone, welcome to Introduction to Particles tutorial. In this course, we will create fireworks from scratch. Starting with basics of particle movement, we will dive into controlling particle motion and their speed. Along the way, we will explore key attributes and learn how to use them to burst particle effectively. Once we have created decent particle setup, we will focus on look development, demonstrating how various attributes can be useful to control color post simulation. We will also consolidate the work of 10 nodes into one node, showcasing the advantage of using attribute VOP. Furthermore, we will explore Houdini 20's Karma XPU, setting up and executing renders, and even rendering technical AOVs for more control in compositing. Once rendering is complete, we will move to Nuke for final compositing. Here we will learn how to utilize all AOVs to enhance the final look. Check out this new course on particles to learn the basics and more about particle system. This is first series of particles, so I want to draw attention to learning approach. I will suggest to focus on basics. What I mean by basics is knowledge of essential attributes like ID, p-scale, alpha, etc. and understanding of particle node workflow, how to render AOVs, and if I check nodes, sometimes we have lots of parameters. So master some parameters only. Most of the effects will be achieved by tweaking few parameters only. So don't try to focus on all parameters at once. You will be confused. Won't clearly understand where to apply that knowledge. But if you are fast learner, then it's great. But if you think you are not able to understand few things, it's totally fine. Focus on what you understand, and most important, master it. It will keep you hooked up. So in this lesson also, I will focus on useful parameter, and other parameters we will learn in second series with proper example how to control it. And why I am talking in depth about basics is Houdini is very open and wholesome package. One concept can be applied to another part, meaning if you understand particles workflow and forces really well, then you can apply similar concept to RBD also. You can apply pop force, same in flip and vellum grain also. So focus on basic, but what about advanced workflow? Yes, it happens sometimes you come to some complex workflow and it's really important to achieve some result and you still not on advanced levels. So don't worry, just save somewhere. You can easily access it. Don't try too hard to remember everything. If you can do, it's great. If not, then don't worry. Just save somewhere and remember where it's saved and improve. And always remember, your creative vision about FX timing and FX rule of size variation, impact, and all matters. And as we all know, our VFX industry is updating too fast. AI will be integrated, so don't be attached to some system. Be flexible. If something new comes up, be ready to learn. If you have clear understanding of basic workflow, you will be able to apply similar knowledge to run that new system. So that's all I wanted to discuss. And now let's enter in magical world of particles. Let's start Houdini. Cool, close the start page. Just quick intro. This is the viewport we have. This is node network. Here we can create nodes. And here is the parameter. And this is shelf. Great. So let's start by saving this file. I'll save it on desktop. Let's create folder. Intro to particles 1. Create folder. Let's name this file particles version 1. And next I need hotkeys. So when I press M, I need merge node. When I press N, I need null node as well. To create hotkeys, we have to use this shelf. So create new shelf. I want hotkeys. And here I can just select nodes. Let's start by merge. Here we have to specifically select SOP merge because we will use that at SOP level. And next is null. This is also SOP and object merge. Let's apply, accept. Let's right click over here, edit tool, go to last tab, hotkeys, and search for network pan and click on edit. And here we can assign the shortcut. Just double click over here and press M. So it will create that. Press apply. We can see M over here, accept. So when I press M, we have merge node. And if I using dot network, if I create M, it will create SOP network and it will add that merge node because we have selected SOP merge, that's why. And let's set this as well, network, but here I cannot use N because it's already assigned. Here I will use shift N, accept, and this as well, control M. accept. Yep, everything is working. Great, let's understand particles basics next. Cool, let's understand particles. I need geometry. So let's take a sphere. If I middle click over here, I have points, primitive, vertices and polygon. And I have position as well. Let's extract points from this geometry using add. Keep points. Now we can render these as particles with size variation and all. But this is static. Let's add some movement using mountain. It won't work because we don't have n over here. So let's disable this. Yep, it's still static, so we have to enable this animation. It's not playing in real time, so I have to turn this on. Real time toggle. See, it's moving over here. But let's understand why it's moving. So mountain is adding 3D noise to P. So to move particles, we have to change its P. That's main goal, to art direct, to follow some curves and add forces also. To have an extra control like this over particles, we have to use dynamics operator. At the moment, we don't have emission control or when we want to kill these particles, right? But we understood that it's using this position and it's moving the particles. I want to explain movement in detail. So for just quick demo, let me use pop network. So I don't want this anymore. Pop network. And if I connect this, yep, we have that particles. It's similar only. Right? But it has some attributes and which we will study later. So how to move this over here? Do we have any mountain where we can just easily move the position? The answer is no. Here we have to use velocity and forces to move particles. I will explain everything later, but for now, let's just understand this. Let's play this. So as you can see, it's not moving, right? So how do we add velocity? So it's very easy. You can just go here, point velocity, and I want to set velocity. So I'll keep it 1. Yep, let's check. So as you can see, it's moving in up direction now. But how this is working? Is this meter, centimeter? What is it? So for that, let's check front view. Let's go over here, front. What is 1 over here? 1 is meter. Houdini works in meter. So for clarity, I will use box over here. We use box. And this is also 1 meter. And I want to make this flat. Yep. This is also 1 meter, but for clarity, I'll use box. So here we have set this one when it will reach over here on first frame or when is it reaching there. So if I have mentioned over 1, it's not reaching on first frame, right? Why? Because it works based on FPS. Currently we are using 24 FPS, as you can see over here. So it will reach there on 24 frame. Exactly. And if I change this to 48, apply FPS, and as you can see, it will reach on that frame. So always remember, when you change velocity or something, it works in seconds. So if you want to define the speed of an object, so you have to extract that meter per second. That's how you can figure it out. So let's reset everything. This as well. We understand V, but how force works here? Is it same like V? And let's just check that as well. So here I have mentioned 1, right? So I'll just disable. I'll just check force. And this is just for position only. So don't worry about all those things. I will cover later. So let me type 1 over here. So it should reach here on 24 frame, but it's not. So why it's not reaching on 24 frame? The reason velocity we have set to 1 from first frame. It will move 1 meter per second, but when we use pop force, it will keep adding that forces. So it will start with, maybe here we have 0.1, 0.5, and all the way it will add that 1, and it will keep increasing. It will go to 2, 3, 4. But when we use 1, it will stay constant from first frame. So that's how we can easily predict that it will reach over here. And best way to check this is, let's just quickly check this geometry spreadsheet. And I know we have lots of attribute and everything. Just to check data for now, we need to check velocity and we need to check force here. So here we have that force, right? But let's focus on velocity. Here velocity is 0. So you can see it's adding, it's increasing, as I have mentioned, right? But it will work different when we use only velocity. See, now we don't have force, but we have velocity first, and it won't change at all. So that's how it's easy. Right, so it's keep increasing over the time, and you can check this gap as well. Yep, now we understood the difference between velocity and forces. That's what's happening over here, and that's all I wanted to show you. Now you understood how particles moves, and let's understand sourcing and solver also. I want to delete everything now. Let's take DOP network and connect this over here. It's empty right now. So earlier we were using POP network. It has everything set up. Let's start from scratch over here. Cool, I'll talk about this next. Let's select these. We have some parameters over here. One is object merge, second is simulation, and third is cache. So let's start with simulation first. So substeps I will talk about later. We have this start frame. And what is this start frame? So if I visualize this, can you see this blue line? So if I change this 10 and click over here, reset, sometimes it doesn't reset simulation when we change the parameter. So we have to manually go over here and click. And second option is you can click over here as well. Just control and click, it will reset. So as you can see, this is start frame. Timescale and everything I will talk about later, and object merge as well. Yep, let's dive inside. So what we need over here? We need solver like brain. So let's search solver and we need pop. Let's start. So here we have three inputs. One is object, second is pre-solve, post-solve. So let's start with object. So here if I type object and pop, so we have pop object. Let me connect this. Yeah, now this is ready. So all we need is source. And for now, let's use pop location. And where do we connect? You can connect anywhere. So let's just use this last input. Yeah. So as you can see, it started emitting. And if I want to change emission shape or something, I don't have any option. So in most cases, you will be using custom shape for emission, right? So you won't use this. So it's better to use this pop source, where we have option to select custom geometry. And here we have already custom geometry. And let's see how we can use that. So by default, it won't read. We have to select this geometry source, which is first context, this input. Yep, it's working now. So in previous video we understood how particle moves, like position and all, but how it moves in real world as well, that we also need to understand. And here we have this particle, right? So first it can move on its own, right? So which is setting a velocity. In real world it doesn't happen, right? The object doesn't move on its own, right? So to move any object we need extra force. So first here also, to move on its own we have to use velocity, and in real world second thing is atmosphere. So atmosphere can be anything, wind, or even if we have something on over here, if this moves, fall an object as well. In dynamics we have to depend on this. So we have ground and sphere, right? So if you want to move this in up direction we won't have any extra push or something. We have to depend on velocity or force. You will be mostly be using velocity, forces, and gravity also come under force. So be clear with these things. So if you want any custom moment or something, you have to use velocity and custom forces like that. Cool. Now let's talk about this pop force. We have some parameters over here. So emission type is set to scatter onto surfaces, which you can see it's working, and currently it's not moving, right? So just moment I'll add pop force. So it's without movement it will be difficult to explain things. Yep, I will talk about pop force later, but now focus on this thing. Yep, so it's moving and it has some stepping as well, which we will learn how to fix. Okay, so emission type. So first we have all points, and what are these all point? Yep, so it will emit from here, and I think I want to change through grid. Yep, now we have more space and easy to understand, right? So as you can see it will emit from here, and second input is geometry, so it can emit geometry as well, but we will focus on particles for now. And next we have points. So what is the difference between points and all points, why it's there? So all points meaning, if I go to next step, birth, if you keep this all points everything is disabled, but if you use points we have some parameters enabled over here. Yep, so that's thing. And second is scatter onto points, so it will scatter points on the surface. As you can see, it's random position, but if you want equally distributed, so you can turn this on as well. So you can see it's equally distributed. And we have some source group and all. What is source group is, if you want to select any specific area over here, and you can create a group of that. So I want to select this area and I will just create group. Yep, it's a primitive group, right? So it will work that. So here we have to select primitive and source is group, right? And similar way we have this emission attribute also, it works similarly. We just need to add attribute over here. So let's just example take this, and by default everything is white only, so I have to make sure I have default black value, right? And here it will carry forward that color as well, but I need to use, and it will make sure it will emit from white only. So those are the things. Let's delete this. Next we have scale point per area. To understand this option we have to move to next tab, and let me just quickly check that. So here these four parameters are responsible for particles count, and let's start with impulse activation. So this activation means 0 it's off, 1 means on. If you increase 10 also it won't make any change, so it works from 0 to 1 only. And second we have impulse. So at the moment whatever we were seeing it was using this. So if we make constant birth rate 0 it won't emit anything, but just for confirmation let's make this 0 as well. How it works, so let me type 100 and I want to know the count. To check count, let me middle click over here that I have this count. So we have 100 points, and if I go to next frame we have 200 points. So on each frame it will emit 100 points. And let me turn this off and let's enable this. So how this works, so this is constant birth rate, and let's just check first frame we have 5, and so we don't have 100 points, right? So how this works is based on second. So let's just check on 24 frames we have 101. So there is will be like minor difference, but it will give that 100 points. So we understood this impulse count is works on frame and this works on second. Now let's go back to this thing over here, what I was talking about. This at the moment we have this 100 particles over here, and if I reduce, let me press L to organize this, and let me reduce this over here, it will still emit 100. But if you want to depend on size of source, if it's bigger I want 100 points, if it's smaller I want half of that. To do that it will scale by this area. So now you can see it's change, and if I increase it will increase count accordingly. This is how it works. So it depends on area, right? So what happens sometimes, let me explain. So we have like two sources in this scene, right? And here it will emit 100 points and 100 points, right? But in this area it doesn't make having 100 points, right? Here it will fill that gap, but it will overscatter over here. To control that, if source is smaller I want lesser points in this area, so you can just use this parameter. Let's close, I don't want to use this, and let's reset here as well, 5 by 5. I want to reset everything, and here we have this max control, and next is just bond. So it creates this just bond group. Let me just use bond, and here also we can just middle click and check that group. So here we have option, one shows point attributes and second shows point group as well. So now we have bond group, and on first frame we have this 200. So let me just check this 100 frames only, right? So if I reset this we have this 100. Maybe on 10 frame we should have 1000 over here, right? Let's just check. Count is 1000 but just bond is same 100. So how this works is whatever emits over here it will just add that into group. So wherever you want to use it, maybe on just one group you want to add some force, and after that it won't add any force. On first frame only it will add some force. And next is seed. And most important is life, how this works. So this also works based on second. If I type 1, so everything will be deleted on 24, and it's not visible over here, so I have to animate this thing. I will animate on first frame and after that 0, and let's just increase count also. Yep. So on 24 or 25 it's just one frame offset only. If we have started from 0 it will accurately delete on this frame. Yep, it's working that way. So if you want any variation in between that, maybe by half. So at the moment 1 is this thing, right? If you type life variation 0.5 means it will use this range to delete that gradually. Sorry, it's 0.5, and it will delete everything at once, so that doesn't look cool. So if I check and see started deleting, but it's not visible over here. Let me just middle click. Can you see the count is reducing? Here we have 1000 points and it's reduced, and it will reduce gradually, and we don't have that, the range I had described. So that's how it works. And we have jitter birth time also. So here we have some option, point, negative. So this is useful when we have some velocity over here. Let me use point velocity to set some velocity over here and set. Yeah, so to just give some jitter over here, you can just use negative and positive value as well. And we have this thing, point velocity as well. So where you want to use this to fix that stepping, earlier we were getting some stepping. Now it will fix that. And just go to front. Now we have that, right? So let's just increase this even more. Can you see it fixing that? We can still see some, but if I disable this, we don't have, and if I keep this null, we have some positive, negative. So positive means it will use this in positive direction, negative means it will use backward. So both works. And here also I have to use negative and back, and it's point. Yep, cool. Let's just reset everything, and I want to keep null, and I will get some. That's fine. Cool. Next we have attributes, and again I will need that. So here we have inherit attributes, right? So if you have any extra attribute over here, maybe let's add color green. By default it will inherit that attribute, carry forward anything over here. So if I keep it 0, means it won't carry forward anything, but I want velocity, so I can just use that. And here I want to use everything but not color, so I can just use this, so it will bypass that. So now we don't have that color. Cool, that's this. So here also we have inherit velocity. This works as a scale, right? So you can just reduce this, and I have other options as well. I can add to inherit velocity, and I have set initial velocity as well. So here I'll just keep whatever I have set over here, and I can add my extra velocity as well. So I can just type 5 over here. It will move in this direction, right? And what is this variance over here? So for now, let me just keep everything 0 to explain these things. So variance is like this thing. So it will just go random direction, and where it's useful, it's very useful. Earlier we were getting some stepping issue, right? And there are lots of ways to fix it. So variance, if I add 0.5 variance, and let's just reset, stay on this frame, let's reset. So as I have mentioned, it doesn't work, right? So this is not working, but if I go outside, it works. Somehow it doesn't reset, so you have to just go these frames to check. Yep, now you have noticed that it's 0. Again, after reset, it won't work. I have to go these things. Yep, so if I any add, it will reset, and it will just mix, because we have random variance, so it won't have equal distribution, right? This looks cool. Even it will fix this as well. So earlier we were getting lots of stepping issue over here, but now it's fixed because of this. See, if I don't use, we have stepping. Yeah, so let's keep this everything default. To set this to default, you can just control middle click over here, middle click over here as well. Now I don't want to use any color. Yep, Now we have one more parameter, add id, and id is very useful. Most important parameter in particles is id, so you cannot miss it. So let's just understand, and I want to emit on just first frame only. Yep, so we have this thing, and let me just kill this particle. I need some range. Let's reduce this. Yep. So I have some icons over here. So for now, let me turn on these display point numbers. And we have these point numbers. Let's keep 10 points only to understand. So as you can see, we have 0 to 9 over here. Let's just move. Can you see it's shifting, right? And why it's shifting? Because it's changing its point count. And id is something totally different. So id remembers this is point number 3. It's like a name, you know, if 10 people, they known by their names, right? So if xyz or something. And to explain you this, I have to show you some quick example. So let me just use random, and I will talk about this p scale and everything later, but for now just one example. Right, so as you can see, now we have this count and oops, what do you think how it will look when we render this? This is not right? And how do we fix? We need id, so let's create id. So I think we can just use point triangle I at id equals ptno. Will this fix it? If I turn this on id, no, it won't fix. So this is wrong way. Why I'm showing you this, you know, it's misunderstanding that if you don't have id, you can just create id and it will work. No, it won't work. We have to go through this dynamics to create id. So don't try to recreate id using point number. Now if I disable this, it will work perfectly fine. Can you see? So just be clear, whatever we get from here, if you delete id from here and if you try to recreate after that, it won't work. So you have to preserve its original id. So we have to rely on it when we have count changing, right? But if you don't have count changing, then you don't have to worry about id. You can use point number in that case. See, it's working fine. So when there is a count change, we have to heavily rely on id. So you will always search for ids. Ids are not working, then you have to resimulate everything. You need to check where you have deleted id and like that. So hope you understood the importance of id. You don't need to recreate it. The dot network will create it for you. Next we have stream, pop source, and binding is set to geometry. It's fine. So stream is naming of this. So if you use xyz, and after that if I mirror click over here, that I have that stream, so it creates the group of these as well. That's useful. Awesome. Next I will talk about this too. Let's talk about pop object. I want to make some changes over here. Let's delete, we don't need these. And I want to add this bit in the air because we will check collision as well now. First frame, and let's add gravity. So here I can use this -9, or I can disable this and I have one more extra option, which is gravity force. So this is also better. So let's go with this one. And I have deleted everything, so I want to use set everything, and let's add this 5, and I want up direction also, and let's just reset everything. Keep 5000. Yep, that's fine. Cool. Increase this. Most useful tab over here is physicals. But before that, let's just check out some parameters over here. And at the moment, we are using this pop source, For now, let me just disable it. And if I just directly use this, copy and paste over here initial geometry, it will just create that geometry over here. And if I scatter some particles and if I use these, I can just set, right? So here we have gravity, that's why it's working. So this is to set initial geometry if you don't want to use pop source, but it will emit on creation frame only. But if you keep these creation frame $f, meaning current frame number, so if you'll, so it will emit per frame. Best way to use this pop source only for emission, and I don't want to use this. Cool, we understood initial geometry, and here we have collision also. To check this, we need collision. Let's start with ground. And how do we connect these? We have to use merge. Here it's written left input effect, right input. Let's connect this to check it. And yep, now it's working. And here we have option mutual also, so it doesn't matter where it's connected, but it's better to use these for better organization. Yep, it's working. And let's just go to front over here. Let's just fix those stepping for now. So to fix this over here also, and let's just use positive forward, right? So it will fix over here as well. Yep. So tolerance is not so useful. Useful parameter is volume offset. If I increase this, it will create a gap over here. You can see it's created 1 meter gap. Check these. Yeah. And if I increase tolerance or something, there is no difference. Right, so everything is it's same only. Yep. So next let's talk about this physics. Most useful parameter over here is 2, bounce and friction only. Let's explore others as well. So this controls the bounce overall. If I, but here if you have noticed, that technically it should bounce and go this way, right, in this direction. So if I increase this bounce forward, will it solve the issue? Let's just check that. No, it won't. Why bounce forward is not working? Let me just reset for now. Let's just draw something. So at the moment, if you notice, it goes this and it's making this moment. What we need, it should go this way and it should make this moment. Why it's not happening? Because of friction. If object is not rotating on the surface, it won't slide, meaning it freezes its rotation, so it will go a direction. But if it rotates, then it will go in this direction. Let me just show you. Rotation I have mentioned for understanding only, but majorly it's using friction, so it will slide, right? So let's just reduce this friction. Yep. So now if I increase bounce forward, it will move in this direction more, right? And there are two types of bounce. So this controls the bounce forward and this is just bounce. So if I increase this, it will bounce in up direction. See, so these are the option. Yep, it will work in. And similar parameters we have over here as well, friction and bounce and everything. And we have dynamic friction also, which controls the scale overall. So if you reduce this, it will slide more. See, so here majorly you will be touching friction, bounce, and temperature is not useful for now. Yeah, here. Next, I will talk about collisions. Cool, let's talk about collision. So here let's understand, does particle collide with each other? So no, it's too tiny, so it doesn't collide. But if you want to add particle collision, then you have to set p scale. P scale we will talk about when we render this. But for now, let's just understand. So you can just set a p scale, basically radius of the particles. And after that you can run a grain solver, so it will collide each other. And also if you want to add collision, it will increase 5 times or 10 times simulation time also. Yep, so this particle collide with an object. Let's add collision object now. So we need box over here. Let's select this template. Yep, that's fine. So how do we read this? We have to use static object over here. If I check static object, I have some options over here. Object name is this thing, so I can just name it box. And second thing is subpath. We need subpath over here. Yeah. So it's not visible at the moment, so you can just connect this over here. So now it's visible. Let's run the simulation. It won't collide because here it's following this rule, right? So here we can just add merge and end over here, or else you can just use this also, but it will be too complicated, right? You cannot just merge multiple over here. Can you see it's colliding now? But best way is this merge collision. Let's disconnect this and connect over here. If you have multiple collisions, you can just merge over here. And now let's just check. So it's working now. Let's study some parameters over here. So first step, we have physical, which we already studied, and we have some other parameters also over here. Object transfer, create active and everything. Let's just check some of them. I will explain use deforming later, but first let's understand what is use object transform. So it's just if I use box over here, right, and I will just transfer at object level, and I'll just copy this and paste over here. As you can see, it's right there. If I turn on object transfer, it will follow that whatever we have over here. Let me delete this, paste over here. So we don't want to use this. And what is active object? An active object, it won't do anything. We have to use rigid body dynamics. Let me connect these, and here it won't work because it's set to bullet, and we have to use RBD over here. So I will just explain this also in some time. Now you can see. Yeah, that's just brief. And ignore merge relationship is just collisions, so it won't collide. So whatever connection we have over here, it won't work. Great. So now let's talk about deforming. So let's add some deformation over here. It's static at the moment, so I can just type $f multiply by 3. So I want to use current frame and I want to multiply by 3. So it will rotate faster. Let's just check. So as you can see, it's not rotating. I can just turn this on and let's check output. So as you can see, it's a collision issue, right? So you can see some stepping, some gaps over here. And how do we fix it? First, let's understand reason behind it. So in this case, we need in between frame data. For example, first frame, second frame and third frame. At the moment, simulation is running this way, right? If object is rotating this way, right? And this is second frame, right? So I want information in this area also. So we have to run this in between frames this way. And here we have to use substeps. So let's just set substeps. If I increase substeps, will it fix? Let's just check it. So it's not fixing that much. And here, let's just check second parameter also. It mentioned that it will solve in between data also, meaning it will just interpolate geometry. So let's just check, will this work or not? I'll just stay on this frame. Let me just reset. No, there is no difference. This option is not useful in this case. So now what to do? Here we have to check this. Let's just select this over here. And if I go and disable this integer frame, then I have in between frame data. So if I run, you can see it's not moving in between frames. Why? Because I'm using $f. So I need floating frame. So I can just type $ff over here. And if I run, you can see I have smooth movement. And now let's just check. So I'll just stay on the frame. I have two substeps. Let's just reset. Yep, it's solving that issue. So that's what you need to understand over here. This is how it works. And the more substeps you increase, the more it will fix these things. And now let's talk about this collision tabs. So this is most useful over here and you will have to always check this thing. So if I scroll down, I have some parameter over here and I'll just ignore everything and just click this guide geometry. And let me just disable this over here. So this is what basically a collision. So you have to always check this. And if you have any open polygon, let me just delete. Right, so I have this open polygon. You can check this, change the shape also now. Right, see. So if you have points over here, it will just bounce. And if you have open polygons, just always use polyfill. And make sure you always send a watertight mesh. So you won't have any glitch. Let me delete everything. So let me just disable this. I don't want in between frames. Here, have you noticed something that it's creating this mesh every frame and it's kind of jittery sometimes. And what's happening over here, it's using this mode ray intersect. And if you want to increase the resolution, you can just go and increase over here. And there are other options over here as well, but those are not useful. Just you can use these. But it will affect simulation time also. And if you keep this visualization on, it will take more time. If you turn this off and turn on this, then it will take lesser time. it's creating volume on every frame. That is also one reason it's creating those gaps. And in fact, we can fix that without substeps also. So I have talked about this volume, and next step we have surfaces as well. And let me just turn this off, and you can see it's clean geometry. It's not a volume. And this is exact surface. Whatever we are providing it, it will use that. And let me check, does it fix that issue? Let's reset everything. So we don't have substeps. So it's not. So here we need to understand, if we turn this on, it won't utilize this surface option. So we have to use surface collision now. And I will just stay on this frame and I will just reset this. So you can just immediately see the difference. Yeah, it's fixing it without substeps, and it's too fast. We are using very simple geometry collision, right? But if you have complex geometry, in that case, it's very expensive and it may crash your simulation also sometimes. So still you can optimize your geometry and use this option. But I will recommend you to use this volume, but not ray trace. You have other option, volume sample. And there are other options as well, but those are not so useful. You can just use volume sample, that's most recommended. And let me just reset everything. And how to use this over here. So if you use this, we have one more parameter over here. Let me just reset. You have parameter over here, proxy volume, and let's just use that. So here I'll just use collision source. First input is this, proxy volume, and you can see we have some volume over here, and you can control this in second tab, collision. So this is the voxel, and you can even create this also. It's just VDB from polygons. It's same only. Benefit of this node is it will calculate in between frames and it will add velocity also. So it's better to use this. And let me just copy and paste over here. Cool. So I'm using this volume collision, and let me turn on collision guide. So at the moment it's using ray intersect. Let me use volume sample now. Yep. And I have to turn this off visualization in order to run faster. And we know how to fix it. If you have clean geometry, you can just switch to this use surface collision. But if you have complex geometry, in that case you can just increase substeps. So in this kind of case it makes using substeps. But don't use substeps to fix those stepping created by moving source. So I have created a tutorial on YouTube. You can check that later. And substeps also helps to calculate extra moment in short frame. It can be useful for curve motion blur. And let me just show you what this parameter. So this parameter is not so useful. If I turn this on, it stays the same. Yep. So yep, I will recommend you to check all the steps and everything, and you can just increase this 4, so it will fix it. Yeah. So whenever you increase sub steps, it will increase simulation time also. Yeah. So now it's fixed. Cool. Let me reset everything now. And we understood this volume and difference between volume and surface. You can utilize in some cases, and you can utilize this also in those heavy geometry cases. And second tab over here is bullet data. So you have to remember that if you are using particles or flip, it will use this RBD solver. But if you are using rigid body solver, remember we have used this. If it's set to this bullet, it will utilize this collision. And if you use this RBD, it will utilize this thing over here. So in particle, it's not useful. And next, let's talk about pop solver. So here we have substeps and time scale. It will increase particle movement overall. So if you reduce this, it will slow down particles. And let me just disable this collision. Yeah, and if I increase this by 10, it will move faster. In a small scale, if you are simulating in, you need faster movement, so you can use this. And next is minimum and maximum substeps. So we have global substeps also, and we have extra control over here as well, so you can use this minimum and maximum. So the solver will decide when to use minimum and when to use maximum. So for example, if you need high calculation in this frame, it will utilize this max, and if you have faster simulation and not that collision, so it will utilize this too. It will switch in between. Yeah, these three parameters you will mostly use. Second tab is update. Here we don't have to change anything, but just brief, I can just explain. So if you want to avoid calculating edge particles or use mask, or if you want to use this, so let me just show you. And you can see these particles are dying over here, and I don't want to calculate that. So it won't kill those particles. So those kind of stuff we have, but it will affect the attribute. So there is the dead attribute, which I will explain later. Cool. Next we have collision behavior. So let me just turn this on. Here we have option to define what it should do on collision. So at the moment it's colliding over here, so you can just add into some group, or you can add a color. So you can just create a collide group, so whatever is collided, and you can add different force on that thing, right? So these are the collided. You can add extra drag on that thing, and here you can set a response, what it should do. It can stop over there, right? So you can check this, it stopped over there. And those are the slide, and other options are also there. And we have one more option is attributes. So here you can just add heat number, heat position, and this can be useful if you want to create laser simulation. You can just find heat frame, heat time, heat position, those kind of stuff we have. And next is slipping. Let me just disable this. So you have noticed over here particles are keep sliding over here, and if you want to make them static in some time, so you can just turn this on. And here we have velocity threshold. So if you increase this, particle speed goes below this velocity threshold, it will stop. That range is not working, so you can increase it. Let me just pin this over here, reset. Yeah, now it's working. Let me just use 3 only. Four. It means particle moment is more than 4, so that's why it's not stopping over here. Minimum is 5, so it will just stop there. See, so it's just stopping in there. And here we have slip delay also. You can see it's just stopped in the middle of the air, so you can just add 2, so it will gradually slow down. Cool. So you can just use slipping color also now. It's activated here. And to control this kind of stuff, we have other thing as well, So at the moment it's following constant speed, right? So if you use this increase friction dynamic range, and let me just reset everything over here, and now it won't slide that much. See, so let me just use this much only. Yeah, I have to reduce this even more. Yeah, see, now it's not sliding that much now. So you can just play around with this value, so it will stop. Yeah, see, now it's below 1. That's why it's stopping over there. So this is the threshold. Start a slip whatever is emitted on first frame, meaning simulation frame. First simulation frame, it will be inactive, and at the moment we have continuous emission, right? So let me just emit on first frame only. So here I want to use impulse activation 0, and I want 1000. Yep. See, it's not moving now. And if I turn this on, it will move. If you have continuous emission, it won't work. Cool. So next is binding and distribution. It's useful for farm and stuff. Cool. That's all. That's just basics of particles. And this was just a brief of all these parameters. And don't worry if you didn't understand some parameters. So now we will create fireworks, and it's always easy to understand things with example. So let's create fireworks next. Let's create fireworks. I will delete everything. I don't want anything over here. So I'll just need sphere. So I'll use this as a source to emit particles. And let me just rename this particle sim. Yeah, this is my source. All we need is popnet. So I will get this node flow over here. And yep, it's emitting now. Cool. We have to set a velocity, right? So it will go in up direction, but at which speed? So let's just Google it. So if I search this, it's saying that firework speed is 45 meters per second, right? So we can use this. And here we need to just use, and can just set this over here, and we can use 45 over here. Yep, so this is the speed. So at the moment I'm able to follow real speed like 45 meters per second, right? But in production you will have camera, you will have sky level as well. In that case you have to set value according to your scene, and based on that you have to visually match the speed. So follow some reference in that case and check how fast it's moving. So accordingly you can just match the speed. So you can just set this 20 and keep your reference over here and just check it's matching the speed. No, just increase it 45 and 47. It's up to you, right? So this is not exact value you have to follow. You need to just set everything according to your scene. Whatever is there in the screen, it will sell. So you have to work accordingly. Yep, and I have lots of particles over here. I want to reduce. Maybe let's use one only because it doesn't emit that much. Here I can use anything over here. If I use this, it will continuously emit. See, I don't want that. I want one or two particle per second. Yep, this is best. Yeah, see, it's creating random gap also. Cool. Next one I need is trail. And how do I create a trail? Because these are single particles and there is always a trail, right? So let's create trails. For that I need pop replicate. And here if you check, it's all same. Whatever we have learned over here, it's similar only. So what is new? Shape and noise. I will briefly explain this tool in some time, but let's just connect this. Let's connect this over here and check. So is it emitting? Yes, it's emitting over here. but at the moment it's just following same speed. So we have to go to attribute and we can just reduce inherit velocity over here. So let's just reduce 0.1 and check. Yep, can you see it's creating a trail? And that's too long trail, so I want to delete life also. Yep, that's fine. See, and what is the second input over here? Let's connect that over also. So it says it's a reference over here, and what is this reference? So it won't emit anything over here, so it will use this as a reference, so it won't simulate this separately. That's fine now. And here we already know how things works. Let's just check what is shape over here. And shape is nothing but it will just create some shape. If I use box and I can increase this, let me reset over here. Yeah, you can see it's box over here. Let me increase count so you can just clearly see this. Yep, it will follow box shape, so I don't want shape over here. But before that, let's just add noise. So you can see it looks too boxy, right? So if you want to add additional noise on that, you can do that also. See, it will add some noise on top of that. These two are useful to change shape of emitter, but you can just disable this, and I want sphere and scale is 0. Yep, as you can see. And here I want to add some variance. We can see some, it will have a this trail over here. And again it's creating stepping over here. So let's just straight away go and increase sub steps to fix it. Yep, it will fix. But let's understand these things. Never use sub step directly. Always find some alternate solution to fix this kind of stuff. So let's just understand why it's happening over here. So this is the main point we have, and it's creating these particles. So why it's creating gap? All of them has same speed, right? So it's inheriting. So this has one, this has one, right? So what we need is we need some range in this thing. So if we have random, then it will fill this gap. So at the moment particle is moving in this direction. That's fine. And whatever is emitting also it's correct. It's totally correct because we are not simulating this in between frames, right? If you want to calculate that precise in between frames, in that case you have to use substeps. Then only it will just read this and fill this gap technically. But I don't want to take extra simulation time or something. That's why I'll just find a quick solution. So in that case, we can just use drag. So here is the reason. Here I want to apply drag on these particles only, not on these. So if I have used this over here, I had to apply on both of them, right? So it's fine now. I can just apply on emitted particles and I can just name them also trail. Yep. And by default it's 1. So that's not so useful. What I need is random. So I'll just go over here. So this thing is very useful. Always use this. So whatever we have over here, and remember I have discussed about the ID, it has random value. So we will utilize that only. So you can just type over, go over here. It's air resist. So don't type air resistance. It's air resist. Air. Right. So I want to use this multiply and random at ID, and I want to use from fit 0 to 1. So take a screenshot of this. This is the most useful wax, and I will explain in some time what's happening, but let's just see the result. So why there is no difference? Because we have reduced over here as well. So I want to use first this, and let's just play. Yep, it's fixing. Still it's not fixing over here, so I want to reduce this. 0.1. It's fixed. That's just nice and easy way to fix. And I can just spread this from here as well, so I can just increase this. Yep, but that looks too uniform, right? So I will just use pop force. And this is right time to explore pop force also. So here we have some parameters. This is force, in which direction you want to add this. So you can add some wind also on these things. It will look cool. See, right? So I don't want winds. What I need is this swirl noise. And what is this swirl size, swirl scale, pulse length, and everything over here? We have that. This is amplitude over here, and I want to use amplitude 1. Let's see over here. No difference. Let's increase 10 times. Yep, now you can see. Yep, that's fine. So what is the swirl size? So swirl size basically a noise scale. So if I use box over here, and this is what it will apply. So at the moment swirl size is 1, so it will apply this noise. And same we have control in axis as well, and pulse length is basically speed. How fast noise flow you want over here. So how this is works is, if I reduce pulse length, it will increase noise speed. And if I increase pulse length, it will reduce noise speed. Let me just explain it quickly. And here it's not visible clearly, but let me use grid to show you. Yep, and let me increase this. Yeah, see, let's just stay on this frame and pin this. Let's increase particle count also. So these are the things that you will mostly use, and just understand these things clearly. Yep. And as you can see, it's traveled too much, right? So if you reduce this thing over here, it will travel less. Let me reset this. Let me just go one frame. Yep. So you can just clearly see the difference. And reference is extra noise. It will just break the noise more with high frequency, and there are other options as well. But that's all for now. Let me just delete these. We understood this part, so I don't want to change anything. Just keep, and I will reduce this life over here. Yep, that's fine. And I want to talk about this vex now. So what's happening over here? So air resistance is 1. So if we use air resistance, it will slow down the particles. It will work as an atmospherical drag. We have wind that slow down things. That's what we can use this as a drag. It will start with the speed, and it will gradually slow down the speed overall using this drag. And here we have just wind velocity also. You can set in which direction it should move, and air resistance is a drag basically overall. And why I'm using this vex? So if I use air resistance, it will assign one value, one drag to all particles. So all particle will slow down at same time. That's not what I want. So here I will use some vex. So random ID. So what is random ID over here? Let's just understand. So if I have multiple ID over here, meaning 5. So this is from 1 to 5 I have, right? So it will just use randomize it, and it will give me from 0 to 1. So we will have gradient between that 0.5, 0.6, 0.8. So it will randomly assign on all of these 5 particles. And I will just use this fit value over here. So as you can see that I have 0 also over here, right? So I don't want that 0. I want 0.1 instead, because if I use 0, then it will be too fast. It will apply 0 air resistance, and that's not what I want. And I have max 1 is fine, but here you can just use 2 also. It will fit by 2. So that's what this wax is doing over here. And that's a quick way to fix this kind of stepping. And let's just add ramp color also. And I want ramp. So by default it set something over here. So let's just see. And I want reverse of this. Oops, it's not moving. Let me use this black. And we can just use yellow. That's fine. See. And this ramp is using something called NH. And what is this NH? But before that, let's just check. Do we have that attribute? Let me search for NH. So we don't have that attribute. So NH is a hidden attribute over here. And let's just talk about it. And this is right time to explore geometry spreadsheet also. So let's go to geometry spreadsheet over here. And we have multiple things happening over here. So you just need to focus on this point because we are working on point. Just select this node and click these points. And here we have lots and lots of attribute over here. So not all of them are useful, right? So we can just filter them out one by one. So this is position. So it's point position. And here we have age and how age is working. So if you see in the start frame, it's 0 and it increasing. And next is air resistance that we have already talked about, right? So you can see that we have range over here. Let me just pin this and let me disable that pop drag. So now we don't have air resistance over here. So that's what creating that thing. And we can just we can disable this wax also. Now we have all of them, one only. So that's how it works. Yeah. Now let's understand what is NH. So how NH calculates, it uses this age and life over here. So let me just filter them, age and life. So I'll just focus on age and life only. So 100 is those 2 particles, life of this thing. And that also we will talk about when it should burst in next video. So it will divide this age by life. So this age moves from 0 to 0.5 because we have this life. So you won't see particles above 0.5. It won't cross that value. Here it's crossing because we have this life is 100. So that's fine. To explain you this quickly, let me just use some wax. And I want to grid over here. Just this is for explanation that what is happening in the backend. I'll just use point triangle. So I have this age. I want to create a parameter. And I have this life, which is 0.5. And I want to calculate NH, age divided by life. Let me unpin this. Sorry, I have to mention this at. So interesting part is it won't show this NH over here because that's hidden attributes. So here you have to change this to capital N to visualize this. And it's not only that, you can use XYZ also, just different from NH. And let's just check. Let me create this. And this is my particles. It's aging, 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 aging. So if I stop at 0.5, it's 1. So NH is basically the value from 0 to 1. And you need to clearly understand that how things work, because that's most useful, and based on that only we will just add some color variation and everything. Right? So you need to understand this mathematics, little mathematics behind it. And in this example, it will cross, but in particles, it won't cross because we have set age limit there. 0.5, it will stop and delete the particle. Cool, that's understood. Let's delete this. Clear and know how to use this geometry spreadsheet also. And if I select this, it will show lots of confusing stuff that you have to go inside. Just create a null and just it will be easier for you to explore things over here. Yep, you can track everything over here. ID, particle, hit points, everything. Cool. Let me press L to organize things. So next we will talk about burst and how to set burst timing and everything. Let's talk about burst. And here if you have camera and you can just burst this at over here. Here I want to follow real value, so let me Google it. At what height do fireworks burst? So it says it burst at 60 meters or 150 meters. So let me use box over here. And here I'll just copy this and paste this over here by 2. So whatever is there, I haven't unpinned it. Yeah. So if I don't use this, then it will be like this. Whatever I increase over here, it will be there. And I have to change this manually. So I can just link this. It will increase that. Here I can just start with 60, which is minimum range. And I can even increase this by 70 also. That's fine. It's up to you. So I'll just go with 70. Again, I'm mentioning you don't have to follow the same value or everything. Depends on your reference scale and how fast you want. So for now, I'm just following these things to explain you that we can follow some real value also and how we can implement this for here. I will template this. Okay, so it's going above that thing. So I need to kill this at this thing over here. Let me reduce this by 1. So it will delete right there. Let me just move this so I can see. Yep, I want 0.5. That will work. So I think I can use 1.5 also. Yep, 1.5 works well. And how do you burst it? But before that, let's add some gravity. So here we can use pop force, and I will just straight away go and minus because that's what gravity is. Let me just check now. I have to compare this now because it will change everything. Because whatever burst we have, it should follow the gravity, right? So that's why I have to add gravity now. Yep, so I have to increase it. 1.5, that was. Yep, it's correct. How do you burst this thing? So for that also we have to use pop replicate. And here you won't connect this. You will connect this as a reference because this is the mainstream we have. It will simulate this thing and it will use this as a reference. And I want to burst particles when it dies. So how we can find out that value when it dies? So for that, we have to again go to this geometry spreadsheet. So that's why it's very, very useful. So let's just search. Do we have anything related to death or something? So we have death attribute. So let's just filter out death and just study it. What is doing? Okay, so it's always 0. And why it's always 0? Because whenever particles dies, this value turns into 1 and that's not visible because particle is dead till then. To just visualize that, we can just turn this off. Rip particles means it will delete. So I don't want to delete particles. I want to keep them in the scene so you can just check. So these are dead particles and I want to utilize them. In geometry spreadsheet, it's not visible from 0 to 1 because it's dead. But inside here, it's visible. And let me just show you that. So for now, I'll just disconnect this, and here I can just use group and I can just easily type that is equal to 1. And let's see the magic. It's working. That's what we want. And now let's quickly make some changes. Here we can just use 0, or we have another option is points where we don't have scale. So that is also we can use. And I don't want to use this now impulse because I have one frame only to emit things. In that case I will go with this. I want 100 points. Yep. So burst I need add inheritance. Let's just increase them. That's the magic. And here we have gravity also, and it's inheriting that value and I don't want that much, so let's just use 0.3. Yep, I can reduce this also. And here also I will add drag because drag is must. Okay, I want to kill particles, so here I can just use 1. Okay, so all of them are dying at same point, so that's not what I want. So I can just go here, copy, paste, divide by 2. So I will have some range over here. Yep, you can see some particles are dying sooner and some particles are later. So that's fine. And here also I'll just give it some life variance because here I want some longer life variance. So some should die quickly. And here also I'll just copy this. Oops. I'll copy this and paste over here. And it has slowdown speed a lot. So I want less only. Maybe I can use 0.5. Just see. It's reduced a lot. I think 35 will be fine. Yep. Yeah, it's time to set a camera over here now. So let me, this is max range we have, set a camera. That's fine. Oh, I have to move my camera now. So to move my camera, I can just go here, lock and move back. So I can just capture everything. Yep, cool. Let me turn on my trail. And here I want some life variation. Divided by 2. And you can just reduce particles count also 2000. That's fine. And here also we need trails. I'll just copy this same thing over here and paste. And let me just connect this. It's bus trail. I need same, and I can just change the color to red so I can see the difference. Here also I have to connect this additionally. Let's just check. Yep. Everything is working. And here you have noticed the count is too much, right? So I can just reduce count 0.5 is fine, and here also I want 0.5. And let me reduce this variance, and here also I should reduce that. Yep, we have control over particles. Let's just check drag, and let me just increase that by 2 because I need to slow it down more. Yep, and let me unlock this camera so I can avoid moving it again. That looks cool. I know it's a really simple example, but here we have learned a lot about how age works, how that attribute works, how to burst things over here. And here I'll just make some changes. So always just work on random things that all of them follow some different noise frequency, swirl size. And let me just check the parameters one more time, what I have changed. So that's fine. Here we are using this drag, pop force, this color. Let's just organize this. Let's go more crazy now. So here we know we have burst this thing, right? What I want to do over here, I want to burst extra this particle also, and not all of them. I want to use some ratio, where I can just select 50% particle, 30% particle. Let's use that. Yeah. And again, I'll just create everything, build everything from scratch, so you can just revision also. If I fast forward some part over here, so now you can understand one more time. Okay, so that's just burst, and I will use pop replicate again, and that is second burst. And whatever I'm naming over here, I will use them as a group later. So make sure you just name things clearly. Yep, let's just connect them. And this is my second burst. So I'll just keep it separate and connect this. Okay, so before that, here also I need to set a group. If I set a group over here, then I have to use all of them where I don't have any control. In that case, let me just disable it. I will use pop group to separate out those particles. And I have to keep that in our system. So if I check pop group, I have some parameters, and I will talk about main parameter only. So which is group name, which is second burst. So I want to create a group over here. And source group is that thing, dead. And here we cannot visualize anything, but here we have option to turn this on. So that's the chance, currently set to 50%. Let me just play it. And let's just use that group. So here now connect these, and let me just copy this second burst group over here. And again, I have to make some changes. So I can just keep everything same. I want to use point add over here. Let's just increase by 0.5. See, it's working. So it's currently using 50% and I don't want that much. So let me reduce it. Yep. Okay, I can reduce it even more. I want tiny, 1% only. Yep. See, you can see it here. You can see it over here. Maybe you can increase a little bit by 0.2. That's fine. Yep, it's working perfectly fine. And here also I want drag. So let me just use drag. Pop drag. So after that we can set some value over here. Before drag it will be. So we know what we need to do. Air assist. Just type clearly over here so we know fit. And I don't want that. Let me use half of that. Yep, now you can see. Here also I want to set life 0.1 by zero point 0.1 and I can set an impulse because that's not enough points. So let's use 100 points at once. So on each burst it will emit 100 points. See, now we have good quantity. And if you want you can add additional burst also. It's up to you, but it's fine. I'll just stop right there. Yeah, but trailing is must. We have to add trailing. So we will use pop replicate again. I will reference it. I have to connect this. So I can just type second burst trail. Type very clear so you can understand after cache. Let me play it. Yep, that's working. Yep, so here I have to just reduce the life overall and I can add some variance over here so you can just spread more. Yep. And on shape also I need to use point. So it will emit from the point. You can see. Oops, it's not reset yet. Yeah, that's happening because of the inheritance. So we have to use drag over here now. So I'll just use drag and I want to use extra drag because you can see it's shooting a lot. Let's play. Yep. Yep. Beautiful. And I want noise also. Let's use pop force again. And here I can just use 5. What value I'm following over here? Point. Here I will use 0.75. Something difference. It's up to you. You can just follow same value on all of them, or you can have some randomization. And I want different color also. So I'll use pop color. If I use rainbow here, it's already set to NH. That's good thing. This doesn't work. I have to manually set this. This time I will use this green. Different. Yep, that's all. Let's check from camera. And you can see we have multiple burst over here. That's I don't want that. So I'll just reduce it. Next I will talk about particle post processing. Now we will cache these and add some color. But before that, let's add sparkles. This thing is fine. I will add one more merge over here. And that's totally different. So for sparkles also I will use pop replicate, and I want this from main points only. So I'll just connect this and I'll name these sparkle source. And here also I have to use the same one. Let's connect this. And now let's play. Yep, that's one. And we have done this many times, so we already know we need 100 points and one by one. The shape we need point, we don't need noise. I need less inheritance. Yep, let's just increase this. That's fine. Yeah, and we will add drag also. So I'll just copy this and paste this over here. And now we can increase this. Yeah, so I want to cover this area. So I can just increase, maybe 21 is fine. Yep, maybe let's reduce it a bit. Yep. Yeah, so I want render this. So this is my source, right? I want to burst extra over here. So that's how it will look cool. One more time I need pop replicate, and this time I won't connect this over here because it won't simulate. I want to directly use this, because whatever is that emitted, right, I won't be using that. I will directly use this burst, which is dead, and we will have a group these groups. So let me just name these just sparkles. That's all. And here also it's same. Oops, not these. 100 one by one. It's fine. Point. We will work on life, but let's just set everything first. Yep. And here also we will need drag. And let's set pop color also. So I'll just copy these, and this time let's use some different color. This thing. Cool. Everything is set. Press Shift L. So you can see that this thing is changed. So I'll just reset over here to fix that. Yeah, now I want this thing. Let me select camera again. Cool, it's working. So I have to set some value over here. Yeah, so let me reduce count first. And 100 is too much for that. And I want less life. That's first thing. Oops. So I have done it not on this one. That's fine. I need to work on this thing. So here I want 20 and I need one by one. That's fine. Let's give it a blue color. Still not visible. Yeah. So now life is also set. Here I will reduce this and I want to increase this. It's not visible yet. Yep, that's what I want. See. And we won't render those white points. We will just render this blue. It just start busting too quickly, so I'll reduce this. Now it's fine. Yep, that's fine. Everything is set over here. And one more thing, what is this pre-solve? So here also I'll explain this thing. Let me just duplicate this to explain you that. And here I will use just both are same only. So how this solver works, first it will calculate these and after that it will calculate this. So whatever you want to set before source and everything, you can just connect this over. It just one frame offset. So if I connect this over here also, everything will be same, it will just offset. Let me show you. Let me reset. See, you have noticed difference. Yeah, so this is pre-solve and this is post-solve, just one frame difference. So we don't, so post-solve is fine. And I want to cache this now. Let me delete everything, press L. I will use file cache. And I still prefer this path. So I can just clearly mention which file name, $OS. Yeah. Let me just cross check everything. Yep, it's taking that. And here I'll use particles v1 and load. So it's set over here. Let's cache this. So at the moment I have cached everything, right? And let me just check the data. It's 333 MB. That's fine. But here I can just optimize this also. If I middle click, I have lots of attributes. So I can remove some of them and I can keep most useful only. So how we can do that? For now, I'll just disable this and I will use attribute delete. And I will just select delete non-selected. So by default, it will delete everything over here. Okay, so let's start by, so what we need over here. So color is fine. By default, it won't delete position, right? So we will always have position. I don't want age for now. ID is most useful. Yeah, so I have used 3. So first let's start by splitting these. I want this thing over here. Let me use split. So these are the groups I have created. So this is just stream names and I can split them. So first I need main trail. Do I have that? Yep. So that's the one. So we don't have burst anymore. Let me copy this, split over here. And I will use Alt and copy. And I want second burst trail. Not this one. I need just burst trail only. Yep, that's also fine. And third thing, we already know, second burst trail. Yep, we have this thing. Fourth one is just sparkles. Do we have that? Yep, we have that. Now everything is separate and we can work on those things. Yep. And what do we have? This is just those points. See, which we don't need it. Now I want to work on the colors. Yes, so I will just use color and I can use NH over here. So I'll just use RAM and NH. So we know that nh requires two attributes, which is age and life. So let me just release them from here, age and life. I have those two. So we understood why we need age and life. Now we know id is most useful, we have to always keep it. Velocity is most useful. Yeah, so now, but nh is not working because that's hidden attribute. And if you want to use it, so you can just create one point triangle. You don't have to do anything extra, just use n capital, that's just xyz attribute, and you can just use nh. And here I can just mention capital N. Now it's working. Color attribute cannot use hidden attributes, so you have to just create xyz or something, then you can just use over here. Yep, that's working over here. Okay, so here I need bright and here I need dark. So let me use, or else I can just switch this value also, but let me go this way. I need bright yellow, .5. Let me just use some orange, and here also I'll just use some orange with some dark value. Yep, that's fine. And this thing we can keep here also. Oops. So we can utilize everywhere. That's one thing. And what's happening over here? I have multiple, right? And I want to split them. Maybe 50% I want this yellow color and 50% I want something else. Let's use red color, right? So how do we split it? Remember we have used that wax. Where is it? Track. Yeah, so we can use this here as well to split them out. And here you can use point triangle, or you can just use attribute adjust float. And what I need over here is I want to split it. I'll just create one attribute split. And what I need, I want to set attribute over here and random. And random based on custom attribute, which is id over here. So it will work on that. So it will give me from 0 to 1 value, and I have that randomized by id custom attribute. If I don't use this, element number will be this point number, and which we know it's not so useful when particles are dying. Yep, so here also we can just use one more extra split. Let's just use split greater than 0.5. It's split now. Oops, wrong. See, and let me just color them. I want red color base, or maybe let's use bright. Oh, it's not ramp over here, so we have to use a ramp. I will use bright red in the middle, and here I want a bit dark red. Let's just use this side. Just, yep, let's merge them both. It's same only. Why it's same? Why it's not working? And we need to understand these things over here. So what's happening at the moment? Everything is working. It's correct. Let me just take a screenshot. So we have these particles and we have ID on that thing. What we need over here is I need ID for this entire area 1 and 2. And what we have right now is individual points ID. I don't want that. That's not useful. Right? So we can create that. It's not that hard. So remember we have this thing over here. And just one more thing, everything is going straight, right? So it's right time to add pop force here also. and I can just use 10 over here, and swirl size also 10. Yep, now we have some nice shape, and I can increase this more. Yep, that's working. Now let's back to the ID. This is my main points, and whatever we have over here, so it will use that, right? And here I need to set some individual point attribute over here, and let me create that. I will just use pop angle. I can just create any attribute I want, main ID, and I can just use at ID, just store main ID. And here also I had to, here also I have to use that. Do we have main ID? Yes, main ID. Let me copy this and paste this over here. We need ID. Yep, it's working now. See, let's give it some different color to identify that. See, and we can just keep these over here also, and I can just copy this multiple time, alt. So for each burst you can set your color. Yep, and for the last one I will prefer this thing. Yep, let's merge these, all of them. It's done. Let me play. This trail looks a bit longer, so I'll just reduce it. 0.4, and let me see. Yep, this green color is not working. We need red. Oops. We need red over here. Yep. Dark red. I'll just copy these and paste over here. Yep. So you can see the difference. Yep, so now we know which attribute we have used and groups and everything. Now let's just cast this again and see the difference. So we have reduced cache size also. Before it was 333, now it's 193, and that's the difference. And we know that which attributes we need to use over here. But here, this looks too complicated. I know it's simple, that splitting and everything. So can we achieve this with just one node? Yes, we can achieve that. So next I will show you how we can achieve this just with one node attribute VOP, and let's see that next. So we just need one node. For now I will just set this over here, and I will use point VOP. I'll rename this loop div over here. So here also I have some options. I can just say select group, which group I want, and everything over here. So let me just double click. Yes. So this is what I have over here, and I can just create everything. So first let's start with this thing. I have used this nh, so here I don't have to do that, it's fine. And second one is this split, which I have used main. So we can just start with visualization first. I'll just start with this color. What I need over here is ramp. Okay, ramp needs some input over here, right? So what we have used over here? So we have used that nh, capital nh, and that's what we need over here, small nh. And to call that attribute, which attribute I'm talking about is this. To call that attribute, we have to use bind nh. And what is that? I have to check that. I can just mirror click over here. Age is float, life is float, nh is also float. So let's connect that. And where do I connect this? To color over here. See, it's working. And I will just copy this. Before that, I'll just rename it first ramp, and I will paste over here. Nice. And next, what we have done over here is this split. So let's work on that. I want to split based on group. How we can do that over here? And for these two group, I will need ramp also. This is my second ramp. And let me just keep it same only. Red. Yep, I have second. I'll keep it bit bright in between that. Yep, that's fine. To split based on group, let me just copy this group. And here I have to use group. So I have one node in group. And what we need over here is first it searching for file name. We can just connect this. Second, it needs this group, which is this thing. And third thing is ptnum, this prim, that's also connected. And let me just visualize it. What do we have over here? So we can see some black and white. So this is 1 and this is 0. So we can use this value to mix them both. And mix, we need mix. So here I have mix color, so I can just simply use mix also. And I can just use this vector. And I will use bias. This is input 1, this is input 2. So I want this over here. Let's just visualize that. Yep. See how simple it was. And let's just not use for a moment. What I need over here is I want to split this board also, and how we can do that. Now it's time to visualize that. Remember, we have created a split attribute using this id. I'll copy this main id, and we know how to load it. Is it load or what is it? Let's just check. id is int, it's integer, so I can set integer over here. What we have done there, I have set this initial and I have used randomization id. So here also I can just use randomization random, and it will give me from 0 to 1. Let's just visualize that. See, and I can see some ramp over here, right? So this can be 0.5. So what it will do, it will just mix that value, and I don't want to blend those colors. I want to just keep 0 or 1, no gradient in between that. And how we can do that? So for that, I'll just use compare. So it will give me boolean value, which is always 0 or 1. And here I can just set greater than 0.5. And what is this boolean? It's this thing. It's a split 0.5. We can just use extra mix over here. Now I will connect this again and I can mix them both. See? And let me just clear it out. It might be confusing. So here I'm splitting based on the group. And this is just main trail. And inside main trail, I'm splitting again using this value. Right, so if I want to add any randomization, and I can here connect this here also. And I know it's bit, these VOPs things are always complicated to understand, but just try to practice these things, how things are working. So the more practice, the more time you spend on this VOP and wrangle, the more perfect you will become with. And trust me, you can see this. We are using so many nodes over here. With just one node, it's working like magic. And here there are lots of advantage also we have. And also I just want to clean this up. I'll just go over here. Yep. So I can just see this ramp only, first and second. Yep, same thing I want for that as well. I will just copy this and paste over there. And now I can connect them this way. So it's up to you if you want to rename this and change color, but I'm fine with that. So I don't want to change anything. And I will just connect this right away. So that's fine. And second here, I want to make some changes in this area. So what I can do, I can just change the seed. So I can add over here, connect these. And this is just add. Here I have another value also, add constant. So I'll connect that. And I can just use different seed for this thing. Press Shift S and you can organize these things. And definitely you can utilize more group also. Here you just need to go over here and change, add one more mix and connect over here. So that way you can split, but I'll just stop over here because I don't want to add different color. I will just use same color only. Yep. And why this looks too different? Because of we have used this add. If I don't use it, it will follow the same color. Can you see? And I think that's fine. I don't want to literally change it. So whatever we done, that's fine. Let's just delete it. It should follow same color only. Control B to organize things, everything nicely. Yep. And we don't need this anymore. Let's delete this, press L. Out particles. That's all. Now we will render this. Let's talk about Solaris now. And we can just go over here and check stage. So this is Solaris stage. And you can use this way or you can just set this over here as well. You just need to use lops. Yeah. So it's up to you, whichever you prefer. I will use this thing and I will just create quick mark control 2, and for this one I will use control 1, so I can just jump between that. Let's import. I can just use SOMP import and let's me press 1, copy this, press 2, paste over here, and let me name this particles. So we can just start rendering this fireworks immediately, but let's start with something basic. I'll just use grid and pop network. And I want to use not these, I want to use this thing. I'll delete everything and just keep velocity and ID. That's all. Let's go to stage. Yep, we have that now. Yes. Okay, so how do we render this? So if I go over here and I can just use Karma CPU and it will render it. And I have third option is Karma XPU. Yeah. So this is more faster way. So we will talk about this Karma XPU only. And I will just hide this grid and let me just press D, and I want dark background over here. Cool. Let me pin this. So we can see some radius over here, but if I check at viewport, we don't have any radius, right? It's just tiny particles. How it's taking a radius? So by default, if we don't provide p scale, it will create p scale on its own, and we don't want that. So let me reduce some particle count 10 times. Yep. And here I can just use randomize attribute. So this is the best one. And I can just select this. Here you can use point triangle, point VOP, anything, but I prefer this thing over here. Dimension is 3. It's not a vector, it's a float value. And I will set ramp. So it will give me from 0 to 1. And if I go to second option, I have seed. So which is ID. And now let me see. Let me press 2. Yep. And let me pin this. So if you want to set define radius, you can just set this thing. It's smaller. I can just copy this, divide this. So you can see that's the magic. So it's not heavy. It's render time. It will figure out the scale of this particle. And if you just use copy to points and assign a sphere, it will be too heavy. For now, sphere is fine. But if you want to assign any other geometries, box or something, in that case, you have to go through that heavy thing. But if you want to just render round particles, you can just by default you can render by setting a p scale. So most useful parameter is p scale in particles for rendering it. And second, let's check out velocity. We need motion blur also, right? Let me set a motion blur. How do we visualize motion blur over here? So I can use Karma. And I had two inputs. You can just select this one. Second one is just for additional render bars. That's fine. Yep. And here I have to just select XPU. And when I press this, it will rerun everything. Now it's rendering this thing part over here. And I have lots of parameter over here. And you can just go to camera effect And first I want to turn this off because I don't want any depth of field. And interesting part is motion blur. So here it's not taking any motion blur, so you can just use velocity blur. So it's not visible, right? Let me just increase value over here. I'll just increase motion. I can just increase it by 10 times. So now you can see we have motion blur, and let me just reset. This is the motion blur we have. So why I'm showing this motion blur, because when we render fireworks it won't be visible in distance, so that's why I want to talk about this. So we have some parameters over here, exprom and everything. Let's keep everything 0. So some of these parameters will be utilized by camera, geometry time sample and everything. So you can turn this on. If you don't use this, it won't read it, so you have to select velocity motion blur. That's one thing. And now it's fine, I'll just disable it. And second thing I want to talk about is, let me just copy this, one more attribute, which is alpha. Everything is solid at the moment and I want some transparency. So when I use alpha, so it's not visible at the moment. So somehow it's not visible over here, right? So with XPU it's not working. Let me cross check with CPU. So yep, so with CPU you can see it's working. And just don't worry, we will create a XPU shader. So we will set attribute there and we will learn how to use direct attribute also. So you don't need to relay if there is any technical issue or something, then you can just create your own attribute, just connect and use it through the shader also. Yep. So that's all, those two main things I wanted to discuss. And now let's go back to our example. Press 1. I will use it. And again, it's Karma XPU. Let me press add. And I will use this camera over here. So I want to load it. You can just use camera, scene import. So it will load everything. And here I have to set that camera. Yep, we have that. And I can increase, that's too much. Just reduce it. It's in -4. I think 0.05 will be fine. Yep. I need thick P scale on this one. I'll just again use point triangle and I want to use it on main trail. Let me use 0.1. Yep. And let me rename this set P scale. Copy this, paste over here. In this example, we actually don't need a light. I want to use material X shader. So how do we add shader over here? We need over here is material library. And let me just connect this. Material X builder. And I'll just name these particles. And here also I have to select particles. And on geometry I have to assign it particles. So this is my shader name and this is particle name. So you have noticed that everything is white. So let's see what's happening over here. Okay, so I have some inputs, output, displacement. Okay, so displacement that we don't need, we can just straight away delete it. And let's just select this, what's happening over here. So I have base color, specular, and everything is there. How do I select base color? That color that which I have set, this CD value. And how do we read it? To read it, we have to utilize geometry color node. And we can just go and straight away select this. So it will render that thing. It will just read CD attribute only. But if you have set something else, so you can use this geometry property value. So in here, you can just call any attribute. By default, it won't read it. Right? So it don't understand this CD value. So what is the name of my attribute? And for that, we have to just select this and we have to go to this Solaris. And it will create something over here, and that's geometry spreadsheet we need. And let me just see, these are the attribute and name and everything I have. And let me just check, do we have, yep, so we have this display color. Okay, so I have to write this display color now. Okay, let me just type display color, and let me check now. Now I have to again render it. Yep, it's working. I need dark background. Yep, it's working. But earlier, if I type CD, it was not working. Now it's working. Yep, so these are the things that we need to check out. And I can see that it's locked at the moment, and I don't want that. So at the moment, we don't have light in the scene. So by default, it will create a light. So I don't want to use this default light. You know, fireworks are always bright. So we have to use this color as an emission in this thing. So if I connect this, you will notice that it will become bright. And let me just go to this emission, press 1. And you can see we have some white tone also because of this. Let me keep it 0. Yep, now it won't depend on light anymore. Yep, that's all we need to do over here. We can just set a size, and again I will use motion blur. It's not visible, but we have to use it. Let me just render few frames. So you can just go over here, select and render template. And that's too fast. It's taking 4 seconds only to render it. Cool. And here I can just work on some optimization. I can just reduce it, the samples. And there is some noise also. So I can use filter, and I will use Intel. So this is also a bit sharp. You can see the difference. So I'll go with this one. And let's just compare. See, we don't have noise anymore. That's cool. And next video I'll talk about technical AOVs. Yep. So let's talk about technical AOVs. We need to understand what exactly we need. First we need RGB. So in comp, I want control to select these things, right? So if I can just select this randomly, right? So this can be red, green, blue. So I can just color them differently. So that's one thing. Second, what I need is selection pass. What is selection pass? So this is 1 and bursting is 2nd, right? And we have sparkle also, that thing. So we can just assign them RGB color on this thing as well, but it will be selection for selection. And third, we need gradient. So we have to keep this hot core, and it will gradually give us some ramp. So that also we need. So that's third thing. And fourth one is edge. So we need ramp. I want this hot area, and it should gradually. So I want this core area, right? So that we will do. Let's just do one by one. Let's start with RGB. So whatever AOV you want to create, you have to create at top level. So for that also I will use VOP, and you can still utilize this VOP, but just for better workflow, I will use another VOP. And I'll just name it AOVs. Yep. So here we need RGB, and I cannot utilize this ID, right? So I have to use that. Let me middle click main ID. So let me use bind to call that main ID, and it's integer. Good. And after that I need random, and let me just visualize this. Yep, it's working. And I will assign color RGB ramp, and this is 0 value and this is 1 value, so I can just use that. In middle I want green, And I don't want that gradient, so I'll use constant value. Yep. Yep. In compositing, I can utilize any color I want. And you can see these both are same, I don't want that. So I'll just add a seed over here. Let me add constant, and again you can see. Yep. So that's how you can just select that. So if I want to change color of this, I can select that color in the comp and change the color. And now let's render it. So don't just export this into a color. So we have to create bind export for that also. So I'll use bind export, and you can see this is for import and this is for export. So it will create attribute, and I'll use RGB press, and just make sure that you don't copy this name again and again, right? So if you use RGB over here, then don't use RGB here because it will create an issue. So always just keep different name and make sure you have that RGB over here. Nice. So let's just render it now. So I'll just go over here, and how do I read that AOV? I'll have to go to this image output, AOVs, and I have lots of parameter over here. So what I need to do is extra verse. So let me just use RGB. That's all. And it's a vector because it's a 3 color. And if I add a just name, it won't work. We have to use source name also. This is the main one. Just always change this both. And now let me just render. So to check AOV, we have to go here and render. Oh, it's blank. And let me just close. Why it's blank? Because whatever AOV you want to render, it should go through this material first. And I need AOV node over here. So it's not there. Why? Because we are using this material library, and somehow it's same Vex builder only, but it's not working properly over here. And this is just some technical issue. We just need to use material network over here, and we can use Karma material builder. And there is a little difference in here, right? So you can see that this is different. And we have some material properties also over here. And if I type AOV over here, that we have that AOV, and I want to utilize this thing. So it might be a technical issue. So I'll just use copy and paste over here. And I'll just name the same material at space. And I'll copy this name over here. Yep. Let's just make some changes again. I want color, geometry color in emission, and we have to keep this 0 and emission 1. Till here it's fine. And we have AOVs also. Oops, it's wrong. Yeah, let me just move it. Good. So we need to load that AOV. So I'll use geometry property value over here, and it's a RGB color. Let me connect this. This thing will rename our AOV, so make sure that you use this RGB here as well, so you can see output, and you have to connect this here. And it's a vector AOV, and this thing is also vector, so you can see. Yep. And now let me go outside and add. Everything is set over here, so let me just render it. Yep. Now I have that AOV, so here I can just select that and cross check everything is working properly fine. So that's all. It was this simple, and I can delete this thing. And let me stop and let me work on other AOVs as well now. And next I need age AOV, so I will use bind and age, and I can export this. So I want to use just age over here, so I have to write age and capital P, and in between that I will use ramp. So this will be age slash ramp, and let's just visualize this. Yes, so here also I have to set range, and this is black, so I need red, blue. Yep, so you can see that we have that age AOV also in here, and we can use that to bright this tip. That's nice. Second AOVs is radius, right? So I can see that what I need over here is radius. I need bright in here and it should dark. So for that we have to store that NH. Right, so this thing is fine. After this, this thing also has a separate normal AOVs. Like I want to carry forward that same AOV in all over these. And let me do that first so you will understand. So I'll just create capital N age is equal to NH. Yes. And let me just bypass this for a moment, and I have to, it's not visible over here, so let me just reset it. Yeah, so let me just use something else. Norm H, and let me just reset this. Okay, I got it. So here this thing is still not burst yet. Right, so that's why it's not visible. So after this thing, now we have that. Let me show you. Norm age. So earlier we were right, it was working, but it's not burst, that's why. So these are the things so you need to take care of also. It's good thing that we faced this issue and we have solved it. Yep. And here I will use bind norm age. It's a vector. Again I have to use ramp. It's a radius ramp. And let me just straight away connect so to check is it working. Yep, it's working. Here also I will use the same thing. Let me paste. And I can just make some changes like this thing over here. Need bit bright. Yep. So I have this set AOV. So I'll also rename this bind export. And this is the radius. And fourth one I need is selection. And how do we select that? So we know we have to use group for that. Let's just connect this and ptnum also. And here what we need, stream main trail. Just make sure type things very clear. And here I will use mix. Yep. So I need red color over here, so I can use constant. So vector, this thing will be red color, and I'll just copy this, and here I can just use bus trail, and again I will use mix, and here also I can just set some value. Let me copy constant. Yep. So it's not using this bus trail, maybe. So it's a B capital over here. So those are the thing. Make sure to type things very clear. Yep. And I will just swap it. Yep. And here you don't have to worry about those things. So we can just delete those particle. I don't want those things, right? I'll just use bus trail, main trail, and second bus trail. Rest of the things are deleted. See. And sparkles are these. Yep. See. Now those things are deleted. Let me just cross check. Do I have main trail over here? Yep, now it's visible. Earlier it was not. And after that I need this bus trail. This is also visible. And sparkle I need. And second trail I need. Yep. So you can see here that we can see some issue. Sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's not. So it's fine. So you can do this before cache, so you won't face any issue. Trails, and let me just cache everything. Yeah. So now we shouldn't face that issue. See, it's working. And we have everything over here. So you name this attribute anything you want. I will use cell as selection. Yep. And let me just. And we have to remember these things: HP, radius, and cell. Let me press 2. We have to use same thing. Let me just use geometry value over here. First is HP. We just copy, make sure it's a vector. So radius, bind. Oops, let me just copy this. And cell. Oops. Cell. Again, it's a vector. Vector. This thing is also vector. Yep. I will use Karma AOV. Let me just connect these and avoid naming this edge, something else we can use. So I will use edge ramp. Connect this, and next is radius. So we don't have radius, so still you can just use radius ramp. And cell, we don't have cell, so we can just use cell. Yep. Let me just create that one by one. So I will be adding more 3. So let's go one by one. First is to edge ramp, and it's a reactor edge ramp. Second is radius ramp. So vector. Let me just copy, paste. And third is cell. Simple one. T and cell. Cool. So these things are visible on this frame. So I'll just render this frame only. Let's just cross check that all AOVs are rendering or not. So if there is any issue, that we will fix. Yep, it's, let me check. RGB is working. Edge ramp is also working. Yep, radius is also working. Let me just check. Cell is also working. Red, green, blue. So I don't want this in the cell, right? So we have one issue. Let me fix that quickly. Let's just check cell. Yep. So here we can just use sparkles. Yep. Because it was reading this as a separate thing and I don't want that. And I have clear separation. That's what. And that's fine. Let me disconnect this. So next we will cross check everything and render this sequence. Yes, so let's finally render this, and here I'll check some parameter. I want render and $OS, so it can create that folder. Okay, sampling is also fine. So here I don't have to change anything, and that's a really simple example. That's why this is also fine. Advanced, deep, filter, this is working well. AOV is also working well. Yep. So now only one thing is missing is alpha. We have not utilized it, and sometimes alpha is most useful, right? So let's just use alpha. So where we need alpha to dissipate this, right? So I want to dissipate this trail in the end, and let's see how we can do that. That's fine. I will utilize this thing, and I want to use ramp, and this thing will be alpha ramp, and alpha A is capital, so we have to use bind export A capital alpha. Yep. And I want float. Let's connect this, and nothing is visible over here, so we'll scroll down. Yep, now it's visible. So where is it working? It's not working correctly, so I have to just use this and this thing over here. Yep, now you can see that. See, it's changed a lot, right? Which one looks better? This thing. This one looks more better. We have that gradient ramp. This thing can be done in comp because we have that edge ramp, right? But fine using this here. Sometimes you may need transparency in comp. That's why I'm showing you this thing. Okay, so let's use this now. And how do we use that? Here, like color, it won't use that. So we have to call that attribute. Let me use geometry value. So I don't know what I have to write over here. So let me just check that first. I will select. Let me scroll down. Do I have anything related to alpha? Yes, so its opacity is there, right? So I have to type display opacity. And where do I connect this? I have to connect this over here, opacity. Let me see. Is it working or not? I am not sure. Let me render this. XPU. Let me pin these. Okay, so I have to cross check this. Is it working or not? Yep, it's working. Everything is set now. Let me press L. I don't want this alpha. Set P scale. Everything is set properly. Oops, wrong. Yep. And I want to increase count over here. So let me just go 2500. Let's use 3000 over here. And bursting also we can 100 is fine, but I want to increase into the trailing. So I will use this 1000. Bursting is fine. I want to increase this trail 1000. And this thing's fine. Yep. So what I need to do over here, I don't want to cache this and after that launch, right? So I want to use a sequence over here, and let me just build it first. I'll use 2 drop network, and I can use fetch over here. Fetch, this is just cache, and second thing, oops, and second thing is render. And let me correct them. So I have to read cache over here. Let me press 1, and what I need to use over here is render. Let me press 2 and paste over here. Yeah, and second thing is render, so I can just directly call this thing. Yep, and I have to rename this now particles version 1, and let's just cross check everything. Yeah, everything is perfect, and let me, resolution is also fine. Let's just render to double cross check everything before rendering. RGB is working, age is working, radius is working, cell is working. I don't want this. Yeah, let's close this thing. Yep, everything is fine. That's because I have stopped that in between. And here I have to use range over here. It's from 1 to 240, and it will utilize that range. So I have to click this and node by node, and I can just render this. So first it will cache everything, and after that it will render. Yep, so next we will work on comp. Yep, renders are done, so let's comp it. To read our renders, we have to press R, and here we can just paste render path over here, and let's read it. And to visualize this, press 1, so it will connect. So this is the viewer, that whatever you connect over here, it will be visualized. And let's play this. Yep, so this is the render we have, and we will work on it. Before that, let's just check. This is the properties that we have. This is background renderer, that's not useful. Now let's set a project file first. Press S, and this is project settings we have. And here, these are the parameter limit. If you keep this 10, it will show this parameter over here. So I want just one parameter only, meaning one node only. So it will visualize one setting at a time. Here I have to set this, it's correctly set, and lock, frame range is also correct. But resolution, we need to change it to full HD, and that's all. Yep, now I can just select this, everything is loading properly over here. Cool. And I want to check AOVs. Where are my AOVs? To check AOVs, we have to use this layer context sheet. And if I connect over here and visualize that, we have everything. And let me just check over here. So show layer names, and you can set resolution also. And 1080. And here you can just change things or keep it automated. This is my color value, and this is my RGB. Let me just cross check. Yep, that's perfect. Age ramp is also fine. Radius is also fine. And cell is also correct. Cool. Now let's work on it. First, let's start with grid. You can press G, it will give this grid. And here you have control to increase the brightness of this thing. And this is one node. We have other node also. We have this CC where you have more control. But to keep this simple, we can just use grid. That simple node over here. with less parameter especially. Cool. So which node I want first? I will work on radius. I need brightness over here in the middle, right? So let's do that first. And here I can just create this null node and I can just use shuffle to extract that AOV. So let's just use shuffle, and what I need over here, I can just select that. I need radius. Yep. So that's right. Yep. So how do we use it? So what's happening over here? I want to just work on this radius part only, right? But here, this also counted in red area, right? So I need red part bright. And here also you can see that we have red color. So I have to subtract it. So I will use one more shuffle over here. And I can just connect this here only. And I will use cell. Which one I want to work on is this thing, this burst. Okay, so I will use grade and I will just connect this to the mask, and I want to use just green layer only. So I can select use this RGBA color green and I can just keep it this way. Let me just visualize that. Okay, so it's not working properly, so we have to use invert. Now we have that. Everything is removed now and we have those things only, which is correct. And what's happening over here is it will work on this just RGB only, and I want to work on all AOVs, so we can just select all. And one more thing, it's not clearly selected everything, right? So here you can just go and increase the gain, so you can just brighten it up, because sometimes this value is not enough to mask this, right? So you can see that before we have some gradient right over here, and it will just make it clean. That's what we want. Now this thing is perfect and it should work on that one. Cool. Now I will select over here. So in the mask I have all other AOVs also, so you can just directly call this value, but here just to make things simple and we can visualize things also, so I'll just use this color. Which color I want to make bright is red, which this one. And let's just check. Let me increase by 10 times. See, before it was like this, and now this thing. And we can keep 5 only, that's fine. That's one thing, it's working properly. See, this is bright, right? Next, again I will use grade and I will use shuffle over here. This time I want to use age RAM. So whatever is there on the tip, I want to make it bright. So if I press R over here, so you can see these are the tips, and I have to press A 2 times to just use RGB red. A do 2 times, and this also I can just connect over here just to keep it clean. I can here I can just select red value and I can increase it 5 times, or let's increase it by 3 times. That's fine. Yep. So now you can see that we have some nice ramp over here, you know. This was flat and now we have nice core value over here. See the difference. And here you can just use 2 also to compare it. Press 2, you can press 1, 2, 1, 2. Now that's good. And third thing, I have 2 color only, you know, that looks too boring at the moment and I want to change the color. So for that thing, I will use shift. So hue shift, I can just connect this and I can just rotate this value. So it will give me other colors as well. And remember that RGB I have created, so I can use shuffle. So this time I don't have to use shuffle. I can just directly call that value. Don't use this thing because I have used gradient and I have masked it out and I have removed all channel over here. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So in this thing, everything is visible. Here also same thing, but here we have removed something. Let me show you. See, this thing is removed. So that's why. But here it's nothing is changed even if I use shuffle and everything. Yeah, so make sure you carefully use this all channel, so it will work on all channel over here. That one thing. Yeah, and I want which value I want to use. So here I cannot just clearly visualize that, so I can use this also to visualize that, but let me just use contact sheet over here to visualize that. Oh, let me control Z. Yep, I have that. Where is my RGB? Okay, so which color I want to change over here is, I think I can utilize blue. So here I will use RGB blue. And invert it. It will, no, invert it won't work. Okay, that's fine. And again we have to use this, that gradient thing I have discussed. So this time I can just use all and press 10. So now it will clearly mask that area. Earlier it was using that gradient. See? Okay, now we can just change the color, whichever color you want. Yeah, blue is also fine with some depth we have over here. Yeah, this looks fine. See how easily we have changed the color. If you render everything without AOVs, then you have to re-render to change the color, and that doesn't make sense. And just for full screen you can press space bar to make a full screen over here, right? So we have nice color range also over here. That's cool. And next thing I will work on, okay, now I cannot utilize this anymore, but I can just shift it and one more shuffle I can put over here to just visualize that cell pass again. And this time I want to use these sparkles, these things, and I want to make it bright. In fact I can utilize because I have to again use that gradient, right? So I'll just again use grade over here and connect these. This time I need RGB blue, and let me just increase it a little bit or 2 times. It's totally fine. Yep, beautiful. Everything is set. Now you can see that these sparkles are more visible now. And just maintain this clean node workflow, that this is very clear that we have set everything properly and fine. That's good thing over here. And next I want to use one of my favorite node, which is glow, and let's just use that. How glow works, oops, it's wrong node. How glow works, it just creates some outer layer, but in production we don't use this glow. There is some nice plugin which provides really nice glow. The reason is because it gives this hard line over here, and you have to work on it to get those nice gradient ramp over here. And we can do that, but it doesn't look realistic. The plugin glows give really nice output and nice exponential glow right where we need it, but I don't want to use any plugin over here. So I will show you how to use this. For now I will use this glow for something else, and let me just talk about this parameter. And this is the size we have, and this is the brightness we have. These are the two major parameters we have over here. So size, I'm not going to work on that. I will work on this brightness. So let me just use one brightness only. And we have one interesting node over here is this saturation. And if I reduce saturation, you will notice that the bright color over here. So what we can do over here, so you can just use this tolerance. How tolerance work? If I increase it, you will see that we are getting that in the middle of that. That's what I want. So tolerance basically use that ramp. Wherever we have bright value, it will add glow there only. And that's what I'm looking for. So here I can just use 6 and let's see the difference. Can you see? We have nice brightness in the core. And it's really useful, and I always use this to add a core. See how nice it is. And whatever we have changed over here and whatever we have used over here, it will definitely work on that thing. And let me just show you that without this, see, huge difference, right? That's why. So you can increase the brightness 0.1, it's up to you. And saturation also, I don't want to reduce that much, so I can just keep some saturation. Otherwise it will be too flat and I don't want that. That's nice. And I want bit brightness in this area, so let me just check which one is the cell. This one is the cell. Okay, so I'll just add one more grid over here and I will just connect this, and I want to use red channel and I want little bit brightness. Yes, because this should be bit brighter. Let me cross check. Yep. Yep. Nice. Cool. So now we will add range glow, and range glow is bit simple also. So I will use multiple glow over here, and let's just use glow. I will just use some connect over here. Let's start. So let's just increase this. I want bright range first, and let's just reduce it. That's why it shouldn't visible that much. See, it's there, but it's not clearly visible. You can see the difference. Let me just keep it 1 for now, and let me use second glow. This time I will use half of this, and to merge them I will use plus merge this time. So we can see it. So if I use simple merge, it won't merge properly. You can see the difference, right? So it will just screen them and merge them properly. Yep, that's nice. I want 200. So just divide that value by half now. Use 100 now. Let me multiple glow over here and just use 50, 25, 10. Let's just connect all of them. Yes, now see the difference. Can you see we have really nice glow range, and that's too bright, that's too bright. So we have to reduce it. And one more thing I want to discuss is you can just use only effect over here, and let me just show you how thing work. So if you turn this on, you don't have that. And while using this, if I check alpha, that alpha is not there, right? So you have to work on alpha also. So now you have glow alpha. So always just double cross check these things. Yes, let's just do that over here as well. Effect alpha must be there. This creates an issue when you export PNG. make sure it's always there. Yeah, so now we don't have that core, so you can just always add a core value first, this here. Yep, so now we can just reduce it by 2.5, 0.75, 1 is fine. Yep. Still the brightness is too much, right? So I have to reduce it overall. Let me just use 0, 0 for now, and I will just increase it. Is this glow fine? Yep, it's fine. So I can increase this. So this is still artistic choice that you can use this also, but I want to use this. That's fine. Yes. So this is the range we have to mention. It's clearly visible, but it's there. This will be supporting element. Yeah. I want one more glow over here, and this time I'll just use 2. And let me just connect this. See, without this, no, without this, now we have more crisp output. Yep, that's all. You can just make changes. So, but if you have plugin glow, you don't have to work hard on this thing. See, when it bursts, we have nice bright light. But yeah, have some reference to, you can match this glow also. If you have reference right there, you know how to change things, how to play around with the glow. So those are the things you will mostly spend time on. And yeah, work on comp, because as a at FX artist you should know this comp, how things work. Before passing it to other department like compositing, you have to cross check yourself that you do have everything AOVs properly, and you have to make sure everything is working properly. Yep, everything is just perfect. Cool, I'll just render it now. So this time I'll use right, and I will let me set a path over here. So this is my Nuke render, and just use version 1 and just render. And here I have to use this for hash just for frame, right? In Houdini we use $F. Here I have to use this hash, and I will use JPG, and here I have to increase this quality, and let's use create directories because I have not created this folder over here. That's why. And you don't have to change anything, just press render, make sure you select this frame properly and render. Cool, next we will review this. Yep, this looks cool, and we can definitely enhance these. And this example is just to understand the particle approach, that how things work out, right? And we also learned that how we can change color post rendering as well inside the compositing. And you can definitely follow some ref. One of my favorite website is Action VFX, so you can just check this. So we have the sparkles, the different color also we have. It has some wind in this direction. Yep, so you can just check this out. There are lots of reference we have over here. You can follow one of these. If you have any question, feel free to write in the comment section, so I'll answer it. And do subscribe my channel, and if you want to support, you can show some support as well. Hope you like this tutorial, and do share your output with me, and see you next time.